Hello, thank you for joining us. We're here today to talk very briefly about what the next generation of lawyers are really looking for. I'm Corinne Staves, I'm a partner at CM Murray, and I'm lucky enough to attend lots of discussions about law firms, often with law firm leaders, speculating, frankly, about what the next generation of lawyers want and need from the workplace and from a career in legal services. What those discussions often lack is the actual next generation of lawyers and law firm leaders. I'm delighted today to be welcomed by three people who've been involved in our virtual intern programme here at CM Murray. I'm going to invite them to introduce themselves, looking at my screen. Kelvin.
Hi, I'm Kelvin Akhigbe. I'm a second year law student and I'm currently applying for training contracts and grad schemes.
Thank you. Eleanor.
Hello, I'm Eleanor. I've just come to the end of my second year studying history at Oxford, and I'm currently researching into training contract applications.
Fantastic. And finally, Ayeda.
Hi, I'm Ayeda, Majid, and I've just finished my second year reading classics at Cambridge, and currently I'm also at the same stage as Eleanor, researching training contracts and thinking about applying.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, all of you, for joining us. I should stress at this point that the point of this conversation is just to understand what's appealing to people who are considering a career in the law. Looking at it from their current perspective, everybody accepts that, perspectives change. Maybe in 3 years' time, they'll be bored sick of the law and have tried something different, or maybe they'll already be partners and law firm leaders. Who will know? But it's this current perspective, because this is the point at which law firms are really interested in trying to recruit people and get those people in through the door on day one. And it's the first step of trying to recruit and then retain that talent throughout their legal career. I've also stressed to them that this is not a job interview. So they may have loved their time with CM Murray, they may have hated it, but they're allowed to acknowledge that there are careers outside CM Murray. So this is meant to be a broad discussion about legal services generally. So let's get cracking. I'd be really interested in hearing why you're exploring a potential career in law. And I think, Kelvin, you mentioned you're already sort of applying for training contracts. Would you like to kick us off?
For me, a career in law, I think it's because of the diverse range of areas there are. I think that's very interesting. It's also the interplay between being able to do pro bono work, which is very central and a core value why I want to do practice law. But also, finally, it's on the point of client interaction. I'm very much a people-focused person, so I'd love to speak to people on an everyday basis.
That's great. Thank you. Ada, does that resonate with you?
Yeah, I would agree. I think that pro bono is definitely a key facet of why I would want to pursue law. I think giving back to the community is definitely really important. But coming at it from a non-law perspective, my degree is quite multifaceted. It brings together a lot of different skills. You have to be very analytical in language and then be very evaluative in terms of essay writing, in terms of history, art, philosophy, stuff like that. And I think law is the perfect opportunity to bring all of those skills together and kind of use them in parallel.
I very much echo what Ida said. It's kind of the skill set that a lawyer needs that really attracts me to the job. I want to work hard. I want like a difficult job. I want it to have changes in pace to keep it fresh. And I think law definitely does that.
Fantastic, thank you. Well, law firm leaders listening to this will be delighted to hear that you want to work hard. That's very much a prerequisite, so that's good news. You already talked about some of that kind of intellectual stimulation being something that drives your decision making in terms of considering career options. Are there other things that will drive your decision making when you're applying to law firms? Maybe Eleanor, I could come back to you for that.
Yes, definitely. I mean, for me, it's mostly sort of firm culture.
Mhm.
I would like to work for a firm where I like my colleagues. I want to be able to feel like I can ask them questions, but also joke with them and want to go into work and work next to them or jump on the Teams call. I want it to feel easy to interact with them. So I'm definitely looking at firm culture as the main thing.
I would agree. I would say that approachability amongst everyone who's part of a law firm is really, really important to me. And being able to ask questions and being able to learn from other people, from your own mistakes, and then take on other people's feedback. I think that transparency is what's really important to me.
Fantastic. Kelvin, does that resonate with you?
Yes, it does. I echo what both of them said as well. I also think like a firm that's very diverse is one that would attract me as someone that's quite diverse in myself, because it's great to see people of like color at partnership level. Is this something I'd aspire to do in the future?
I think that's really interesting. I think you're right to highlight that diversity, particularly at partner level, and actually even worse when you look at the status within partnership, it gets even worse from a diversity perspective at equity partners. So it's certainly something that the legal services world needs to work at. Thank you. You talked about sort of that workplace environment and sort of it being welcoming and being somewhere where you can sort of enjoy the culture of a firm. And I'd be interested to hear from you, I guess, building on your responses, how you think as you're sort of applying to firms and evaluating firms, how you get a sense of their culture, first of all, and then also the extent to which the physical workplace is relevant, because we talk a lot, of course, about sort of hybrid working and working from home versus remote working and the office environment. So it would be interesting to hear from you on how that all fits together and how you judge that as an outsider thinking about joining a firm. And maybe, I don't know, are you able to pick that up?
I think looking at community networks within the firm is what's kind of a good indicator of that, whether they have like BAME or like women networks. I think forming those bonds between people who are not necessarily disadvantaged, but aren't the faces that you would usually see at the top levels of partners around the world. I think forming those connections, and if there's evidence of them fostering a culture of uplifting those groups, I think that's a really good indicator of a good culture.
Fantastic. And do you have any thoughts on the physical workplace? How strongly do you feel about kind of the physical workplace itself?
I really like an in-person environment. I don't know if this is me being traumatized by online school during COVID, but I love seeing
Great,
people.
Ayeda. Yes.
I just love seeing people in person. And I think the idea of going into work and seeing people face to face is something that's really attractive to me. I don't know if you guys share that sentiment.
Yes, no, absolutely. It's so much easier to interact with people, I find, in person, but also to experience the little workplace quirks in person. So I went to an open day and they had a risotto bar. You can't get that at home. Three different risottos every day. Love risotto. And it's the little things that make each firm memorable and makes me want to work there. So
Well,
in
that's
person.
it's an easy win, Eleanor. I love that. Risotto. What do the next generation want? They want risotto. I love it. Um, Kelvin, does that resonate with you?
Yeah, I would say it does. Particularly on the point of what going into the office instead of working from home. I don't know, for me personally, I can't work from home anyways if I was doing university work. So being in the office, I feel like I'd be very detail oriented to the office instead. And I think also in terms of like attending open days, it's very good to try and find out a firm's USP. Sometimes on face value, they can all appear to be the same. I think from talking to people how they advertise themselves through marketing can really bring out special qualities that a firm has.
I think that's right, because you go on every firm's website and they'll tell you that the key thing about their firm that really differentiates them is their people and their culture, and you go like, well, really, that's it, it's the same answer, but I do kind of understand what they're getting at when they say that. So I think you're right about sort of exploring that. We also talk a lot in the legal services sector about the impact that technology is currently having, and we speculate about the impact that it could have on the future roles within the profession. I wondered if you guys had a view on how you see technology affecting your careers as lawyers. And Eleanor, do you want to kick us off?
I think it can only be an asset, really, streamlining the things that could be just quite tedious, and leaving time for the more interesting, the more human aspects. I mean, it doesn't always get stuff right if you're using it as a research tool. So you still need to check it, engage your brain. Law is very, very mutable, changeable, human. So the people are still hugely important.
Do you think that the systems and the kind of for training and for supervision of junior people, for example, you say checking the answer, um, but often experience is needed there. Do you think that law firms are keeping up with technology to be able to check and supervise and sort of support you in your use of technology?
Yes, that's a harder one because you're having to employ knowledge that you haven't necessarily already got in checking the AI. But I'm assuming it will be wrong less frequently, so you can learn from it.
Yeah.
But I think that's an interesting, that opens up a new way of teaching people to think, to always question. So I think it has its benefits.
I think it opens up the avenues for more creativity within law and the really human aspect of it. It gets rid of sort of the rote learning, which obviously, as basic knowledge, is really fundamental. But in terms of what makes the job interesting and not boring, I think that is an aspect that we're going to see expand with the rise of AI, which to me can only be a good thing.
Yeah, that's great. Kelvin, would you agree with that? And do you feel any threat posed by AI? Do you think that the number of jobs are going to go down, or do you think actually, like email, it's going to actually cause those opportunities to expand?
I agree with what both Eleanor and Ayeda said. I think law as a career or like a fundamental subject is constantly changing and developing. So it's good that firms are adopting technology using AI. I think AI is an asset, agreed, in terms of how it can streamline certain admin tasks. And I think it won't replace our jobs because law is very, again, people orientated. And again, you can also learn from AI in terms of the skills gained from AI can learn from you as well. So I think it's almost like a two-way relationship in a sense.
Nice. I think that's a really interesting perspective. Thank you so much. Another thing that you sometimes hear current generations of lawyers speculate about the next generation of lawyers is that there's different ambition. That in the olden days, everybody wanted to sort of go through the same firm or become a partner at that firm, and that was the aspiration. And you hear a lot about the fact now that that isn't the aspiration of everybody, that becoming a law firm is not every new lawyer's ambition. I mean, obviously, there's been massive societal change with sort of huge debt leaving university. The house prices are unaffordable. So clearly, society and therefore pressures on people have changed. And we've got to acknowledge that context. But I wondered if you're able to talk to us a little bit about that. And in terms of your long-term ambitions, do you have a grand plan? Is it, and I would understand completely, is it just about getting a job to pay the bills, which is legitimate too? I don't know, Kelvin, if you can sort of shed some light on your thoughts.
I've always come into the career of law from young with the ambition of becoming a partner. I would say maybe that would change because there's always obstacles that could come along the way in terms of what I've learned. I've spoken to lawyers and they've changed careers. I would love to go in-house in comparison to, say, private practice, just because I think private practice, talking again from experience with lawyers, it can be the long hours can be sometimes daunting, but it depends, varies from firm to firm, US culture, UK culture. But I've had in-house offers some more opportunities, and I'd love to explore that in the future.
That's really interesting. Thank you. Ayeda?
Um, I don't think ambition has really died. I think it's kind of human instinct to want to do the best that you can and kind of reach those levels of your own improvement. I would say partner is definitely something that I'm thinking about. Being able to train people below me and pass on my learning lessons, I think is really important. Also, just becoming a real expert in my little niche is something that really attracts me. So it's definitely something that I'm aspiring to.
Thank you. Eleanor?
Part of the attraction of law is the fact that you can progress in your career and get different roles and responsibilities. So progression to partner from associate definitely appeals to me, and that's part of the point. Yeah, definitely.
That's really interesting. Thank you so much. And I can personally relate to that. I can completely empathize with your perspectives there. It's great to have them. I guess just sort of concluding our discussion, I'm very much hoping that law firm leaders will be able to look at this discussion and take some of your insights away and apply it to their sort of approach to recruiting and retaining the next generation of lawyers for their firm. But if you had the opportunity to speak to them direct, as hopefully you are right now, one piece of advice would you give those law firm leaders who are looking, actively trying to recruit and retain the best next generation talent of lawyers? But no pressure, but I'm going to give you the first word on this, Eleanor.
Wonderful. I think I'd say try and use a social media or just an accessible way that the next generation that they receive and use that to show that talent is applied and it's fruitful in those law firms. And I don't know how you do that, but that's really important, I think.
So sort of the channel of communication, sort of using channels that sort of the next generation are sort of using all day, every day in a way that perhaps more senior members of law firms might not be so comfortable with. Okay, that's interesting. Thank you. Kelvin?
Yeah, I would say if I was speaking to law firm leaders, I would say try to branch out more in terms of open days or webinars in terms of access to universities. There's a huge disparity between Russell Group and non-Russell Group universities in terms of students wondering whether law is accessible for them, whether they can become a partner. I mean, I go to a Russell Group, but still, I think being able to, that in that way, you get a broader range of applicants from non-Russell Group and Russell Group, and therefore it also makes your firm more diverse as well.
I think that's really valuable, and that reflects, of course, the diversity of clients that a law firm has. So that's really important from a commercial perspective. And Ayeda?
I think I would say emphasize your unique selling point at the forefront of the core of your firm, because a lot of the time, going back to what we were saying, on first glance at their website, they kind of all seem to blur together. Obviously, if you do more research into each firm, you do learn that they are actually quite different. And going to open days and webinars, like Kelvin was saying, does help enlighten us about what is different about them. But I do think it would help bring in the best people if they kind of summed up what was so special about their firm and what they're actually looking for in people.
That's really helpful. Thank you all so very much for offering us those insights into your perspectives on what law firm leaders should be concentrating on for the next generation of talent. I think I can summarize it as, making sure that people understand what it is you're all about, making sure that you're promoting diversity within the firm, and risotto. Do you think that's fair? Certainly would catch my attention. Thank you all so much for participating in this discussion. It's been really enlightening. I've really enjoyed it. And to law firm leaders who've been massively impressed, as I was, by these 3 candidates, please feel free to offer them a job. Great. Thanks again.